When did you first learn how to play drums? Like, how old were you?
I started playing drums when I was about 9 years old, 7 years ago, with School of Rock Philadelphia down on Callowhill Street in 7th at 421 Callowhill. It's a great group of people there, and I gotta say, the teachers there taught me pretty much everything I know, and I'm grateful for it.
All right. What is your favorite woodworking tool?
I'd say my favorite power tool to use would be the table saw, just because of its versatility and how many different uses it has. Like I can cut what are called dados, which are grooves, so I can slide plywood in to create the shelf arrays that you see built into many modern homes. But if I had to say what my favorite one to use is, it'd probably have to be the router. If you don't know what a router is, it's basically a motor with a bit attached to it, sort of a power chisel. And it just chisels out all of the material that's not in the shape that you want it, and you end up with this beautiful edge. It's amazing.
Yes, sir. My question is, what are your most proud projects in your woodwork?
Our most proud woodworking project, I'd have to say, is the one I'm working on right now, which is I'm restoring an antique set of drawers from an old, very beaten up state into a beautiful piece of woodworking art that it started as.
Um, what's your favorite rock song to cover?
That's going to be a hard one to pick. There's so many good songs out there, but there's a really good song by an artist called Nick Nocturnal. He's got a great YouTube channel where he covers songs as well, and it's called Meyer. It is just the epitome of progressive metal and gent, all tied into one 4 minute long masterpiece. So I'd say that's my favorite to cover right now.
Okay. Do you have a particular either genre or specific um, artist that music that you like to play?
Well, I'd say it ranges between some classic rock, such as Van Halen, and some people would even classify that as hard rock. I'd consider it more classic rock, but it is rock and amazing no matter what. And goes all the way up to bands like Meshuggah, where they have heavy songs like Bleed, and they have, I like to cover Dream Theater with the various time signatures. The Count of Tuscany is one of my favorite songs to cover because it has so many changes to it. Check that one out.
So for woodworking, what was your favorite thing to make?
Well, my answer to my favorite thing to make has to be anything that I haven't made before. I love the challenge of diving into a new skill set and learning new skills and just expanding my overall horizons.
What makes you think that you're qualified to write a book about identity politics?
Well, it's a pretty simple answer. I mean, as an American, I've seen over the past few years the national debate and division grow wider and wider. And I think, as someone who can't yet vote but is quite involved in the political spectrum and all media sources, I feel like I have a good 30,000 foot view and outside perspective into the what is being called Trump derangement syndrome, and I'm now starting to see is sort of Biden derangement syndrome, but not to the level that it was with Trump. And it's just scary, honestly, to see the division in the country go wider and wider, to see buildings being burnt down, to see the rioting and the looting, and to see our economy being destroyed.
All right. Do you enjoy fishing from land more or from boat?
Well, 100% fishing from boat. I absolutely love just being out on the open water, especially going out like 50 miles out, 75 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles out to where the only remote evidence that humans have ever existed is your fellow humans standing around you in the boat you're sitting on. Plus, you catch a lot of interesting fish the farther you go out. I've caught, oh wow, all kinds of fish. Tuna, I've caught trout, flounder, fluke. I caught this thing called a ribbon fish once, and it looks like this long, it looks like a streamer that's silver with these vicious little teeth. It's scary, but tiny.
Sir, okay. My next question is I want to like focus back on the music. I wanted to ask, like, in like your progress in teaching other people, like how did you notice your own growth?
Well, through teaching other people, I'd say I've grown by learning to take a deeper dive, a stronger analysis into the music that I'm teaching. Although it may be simple, it has a big story to tell musically on the inside. Is that kind of what you were looking for, Aviv, or were you looking for more of like me interacting with people?
More like in the literal sense of your own music. You've like taught other people, and like how has it affected your music, and like how have you grown?
I'd say it's affected the music I'm writing in that it just, I know this is going to sound like a kind of a cocky thing to say, but it makes me feel more confident, that it makes me feel qualified to teach people, which makes me feel like I'm better at what I do, which overall gives me the confidence to put out better music.
What was the appeal for playing drums? Like, why learn?
Well, I tried all kinds of instruments as a kid. I tried the flute, the recorder, the piano. I tried guitar. I think I even tried violin at one point. And I sucked at all of those. And then I picked up drumming, and my parents thought it was going to be just another pick it up for 3 months and get disinterested in it. And after 3 months, I was showing a huge passion for it. But really, why drums? Who doesn't want to sit on a stool and just bang stuff and make it sound good?
Do you also write music for drums, or do you just prefer playing other people's songs? And which do you prefer if you do both?
Well, I love writing my own music. I mean, the majority of my practice is sitting down with what are called backing tracks, which are basically different genres of music with the drums stripped out, and then just improvising improvising scratch tracks right over that, and then slowly improving on them, and then eventually they just become songs. You know, a lot of the lyrics for these songs, honestly, they just come up when I'm doing the simplest of stuff, like laying in bed waiting to fall asleep.
Would you rather never be able to drum again or never be able to woodwork again?
I honestly can't pick an answer to that question. It's just they're the two of my greatest passions, and they sort of go hand in hand. I mean, in my woodworking shop, I'm learning to build drums now, and what's the point of building drums if you can't play them?
All right, my question number 3 is, why did you decide to start Drum Corps?
Well, I decided to start Combs Drum Corps because I just had a passion for sharing my passions. I like to show people new things and introduce them to things that they may enjoy. And even if they don't enjoy it, at least now they know. I'd like to pull up a quote from my website. Music is a powerful tool in the right hands.
Moving forward, what combinations do you see happening with your music and woodworking in your businesses?
Well, I see myself exploring my passion of building custom drums for a little bit and just seeing where that goes. I don't really think I'm going to be selling drums, but I've wanted to pick myself up a wood lathe and start making my own drumsticks out of maple. And building my own drums because I think it'll be interesting to learn about the process. Like I said earlier, learning new things is my favorite type of woodworking. So whenever I get a chance to do something new, I'm happy.
Okay. Have you ever made your own drumsticks?
Well, I haven't made my own drumsticks yet, but I am saving up my money right now to pick myself up a wood turning lathe. They can get really expensive. If you don't know what a lathe is, it basically grips apart on two ends and you use a variety of tools to strip away material in a circular fashion. So you can turn bowls on it and you can make drumsticks, you can make all kinds of things with a lathe. But no, I haven't made drumsticks, but I am very interested in exploring it in the future.
So you teach drums as well, right? And why do you enjoy teaching?
Well, yes, I teach drums and I enjoy it, like I said in the other question, because I enjoy sharing my passions with other people and I like them exploring my true passion, which is trying something new every day. Every day I try to get out there and do something that I haven't done before. I have sort of a life motto, which is, if I haven't done it before, shame on me. If I have done it before and I didn't answer it, or I didn't like it, at least I tried.
Hardest song you've ever played?
Well, that's an easy song. I mean, for any metal drummer that hasn't mastered it yet, the answer will usually always be Bleed by Meshuggah, because it's got some insane hurta patterns. A hurta is basically an alternating group of 16th notes that goes. And it does that the entire song long while going over a half-time beat on the china and snare. It is insanely hard to play, and I still haven't mastered it after a year and a half of trying.
What has been the hardest woodworking project that you've done?
The hardest woodworking project has also been my favorite, which is the one I'm currently doing, because I'm learning to cut out dovetails in drawers and put them together. A drawer is a complicated art to pursue because although it looks simple, you have to create, I don't know if you guys know the woodworking terms, but square means that every corner is at a perfect 90-degree angle. Level means that it is level to the ground. And plumb means that, I believe, that it is straight up and down on the y-axis, both in tilt and in counter rotation. But yeah, that's the hardest project I've worked on. Because if you've ever seen dovetails, they are these tiny little fiddly things that you have to cut out by hand, and they are impossibly difficult to get right on your first try.
Are you a fan of things exploding?
Well, let's just say the answer to that question is I go out with a particular friend pretty much every 4th of July on private property and we set off fireworks. And it is the most fun hour you will ever have. Last year we took, I believe it was 16 sparklers, wrapped it in 100 feet of fuse, pulled the fuse 25 feet, tied some bottle rockets to it and lit it. That thing was insane.
I thought Josh said don't incriminate yourself.
I said private property.
Yeah, but you didn't say it was your private property. You just said it was private property. You could have gone on anybody's private property.
That's a good point.
Some giant fireworks.
But I think they would have noticed.
That is true. Good stuff, good stuff.
My last question is like reflecting on the interview, like how do you feel about like where you've gotten so far in both of your businesses and like what you're able to talk about? How do you feel about your success?
Yeah, I'd say Combs Drum Corps reached a potential that honestly I didn't really see it getting to. I thought I'd have 1 or 2 students, but I currently have 5 or 6, and that's down from pre-COVID. Unfortunately, I can't teach them, but I do expect to have all my students coming back, or most of them coming back after the virus, provided we're not all dead. And in terms of woodworking, that business is just starting to blossom. And if you want to see how it's going and see how my skills are developing, buy something.
What's your favorite band?
Well, I can't quite pick a favorite band, but if I had to pick sort of not a genre, but a subgenre that all fits into, currently it'd be a lot of progressive metal, such as bands like Between the Buried and Me, and I guess the Raven's Age, but that's not quite progressive metal. And Nick Nocturnal, I very much like his stuff. Yeah, so I can't really pick a band. It's more of a subgenre currently, but that's subject to change.
If you had to recommend like any advice to a beginner in drumming, what would you recommend?
If you're even remotely interested in drumming, come in for a trial with Combs Drum Corps. They're free. First lesson's on me. Second lesson is $40, and if you don't like it, I'll refund your money. In fact, anyone who's listened to this podcast, I will give you, 75% off 2 lessons. You get 75% off. I've never offered that before. 2 lessons with Combs Drum Corps, and I promise you, you will be satisfied, or all of your money back. But for real, my advice, if you're not going to come in for a lesson, is make the investment, run down to your local music store, spend $7 on a pair of sticks, and just start how I started. I started with my headphones in, listening to my favorite songs, just drumming on pillows in my basement. And really, that's a good way to get your energy up and get you interested in it, and see if, honestly, you have the physical endurance. A lot of people hold the misconception that drumming is just sitting down and waving your hands and feet. No, it takes a lot of energy.
So what's your favorite color?
I don't really think about my favorite color because I've never really considered it before because I'm trying to focus on bigger things than what my favorite color is. But if I'd have to pick one, probably be gray, honestly. I know that seems dull, but gray goes with a lot of things, and there are many, many shades of gray.
Is there a certain type of music? So you've mentioned that you play a lot of like metal music, which is pretty like, I guess, in fast usually, I think would be more involved and like, do you have a certain type of music you like to play that's more relaxing? Like if you're to do it to relax?
I rarely get to play it, but every year, except this year, obviously, because of COVID, I go to this awesome New Year's party, and they've always got a live band, and I always sit in with the band and play some nice, smooth reggae. It's amazing.
Two of your favorite passions, right? Drumming and woodwork, right? They're both sort of inherently entrepreneurial, or they can be. Like, it's more of like an independent mindset, like skill set. Do you do it just strictly for like the passion, or is there a level of like entrepreneurship that you love? Like, is that something you're into as well, or?
Well, I first got into woodworking just because I wanted to explore it, and then I came to the realization that there's only so much furniture that you can fit in one house. So I have to start selling the furniture, or I have no more projects to make. So I guess you could say it became an entrepreneurial thing by need. It had to become that, otherwise I would have no shop because the furniture would take over my shop. But that wasn't originally why I started it.
Your experience with Quadrat. But can you talk about, I guess your experience with Quadrat?
Well, I'd say Quadrat has definitely shaped my entrepreneurship in the way that I do my advertising. I always thought it was about spending all the money and advertising on all the social medias and all over the internet And then I realized no one really pays attention to the paid ads. They just say, another ad, skip it. Well, how many times have you just sat down on YouTube and intently watched the ad for all of its content and said, ooh, 70% off, that's a good deal? Like almost never. But when you see someone like an influencer post a plug for someone's specific art or their passion, that's when you start to get interested. So I'd say it shifted my advertising for my businesses from paid advertising to organic advertising.
You know, you just are like, so like no one remembers an ad, right? No one cares about those paid ads, right? Yep. But you can save 50% or more in car insurance by switching to Geico.
Hey. Okay. Good one, man. Good one. So Svetlana, we'll go ahead. We're at the final question, Whispers' final question or answer. So Whispers, you already sort of touched on this, but take us out with a good piece. You've been hitting us with quotables all day. Take us out with a nice piece of advice, general advice or specific advice for a drummer, someone that loves to do woodwork, or just, maybe a teenager, something like that. General or specific?
I'd say my general advice for pretty much everyone is follow that lead that I take of try something new every day. I promise you in a year, you will feel amazing because you'll have explored 365 new things, and you'll know whether you like those new things or not, whether you want to go more in depth into them or not. And it really rounds out your life into exposing some interests that otherwise you may have never even realized the potential for your enjoyment. All right, follow me on Instagram at DBDDrums. That's DBDDRUMS. And in 90 days, I'm going to be coming out with my book, A Traitor to the Herd: How Identity Politics Has Ruined Decades of Rational Debate. About 90 days, that'll be available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstores around the country from Liberty Hill Publishing, and I'm very happy to work with them. And yeah, just pick up the book. I think you'll learn something from it. If you want some drum lessons, go to combsdrumcorps.com, combsdrumcorps@gmail.com. Remember, the viewers of this podcast will get 2 lessons, 75% off on top of the original 1 free lesson.